Hi everyone and welcome to the La Quinta Resort and Club. We are at the 2023 Porsche Parade. It's Friday, it's tech seminar day, and we have really, well, Manny I'll introduce, but most of you know Manny, but the person that really doesn't need an introduction is the gentleman to my left.
There we go.
Claps for Manny.
That's for Manny.
That's for Manny, but a large round of applause for Chris Jacobs.
Thanks guys, it's good to be here.
So,
My first parade.
Your first parade.
Yeah.
I think we officially met for the first time as the Hammer. I got to go to Mecum in Monterey.
And I chased you down.
You did.
That's right. We were there together. That's right.
Because you guys were up there. Yeah.
And it should have been the other way. I didn't know he was there.
I mean, that's how big of a Porsche fan I am, and a proud PCA member. That when you were being introduced and you hammered on the car, and I was like, oh man, I gotta make this contact. So
that was so cool, and thank you for doing that because it's led to many things. You've been an integral part of Porsche Parade this year. Hopefully, there's more projects together with you. But today, we just wanted to share not only your history as an automotive personality, but all the. Of course, I think most people in here, when we see your name, we think of OverHaulin, but we also want people to know that you are a true Porsche fan and a PCA member.
Yep.
So let's start there. How did you get into the Porsche world?
Well, my dad always had 911s when I was growing up. It seemed like, this is going back, 40, 50 years. When I was a very young boy, it seemed to me like he got a new one every year. It was probably actually about a new one every 2 or 3 years. But I always remember him having 911s. He had a white one, a Targa with that really cool big 911 graphic on the hood.
Oh, nice.
Graphic? Yeah, he had one of those. And when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old, I would sit in the back seat of his 911, and I felt like I was growing up because my feet touched the ground. we all know how tiny it is in the back seat of a 911, right? So I felt grown up because my feet would hit the ground. And then in 2005, I live in Burbank, and we were shooting OverHaulin way down in Irvine, which is a 50-mile one-way commute. And I was driving this big Dodge Magnum that Foose had customized for me, and it was just too much every day driving 100 miles, to go down to work. So I needed a little car to, zip back and forth, and I said, you know what, I should get a 911, and in tribute to my dad. And so I picked up an Auto Trader. This is how long ago this was.
I remember those.
Trader, right? I was in a 7-Eleven. I grabbed an Auto Trader. Didn't even buy the Auto Trader. I just was looking through
Like
it.
all of us. We just stood at the magazine stand. We read it all. We had a Slurpee, read it all, and then we put it back and went home.
Exactly. Pulled out my phone, dialed the number, and it just so happened that the car was down in Laguna Niguel. And,
nice area, so it's probably got a good
area
home.
And close to Irvine.
Yeah.
So on my lunch hour, I went down there, and this guy opens up the door, and we went back and forth. And this car was his dad's car that he kept actually out here in La Quinta. So this has totally come full circle. It was his desert car. He had only put about 5,000 miles a year on it. So I bought it in 2005, making it 20 years old, 85. And so he put about 5,000 miles a year on it, making 80,000 miles. So, 911s, that's just
it's a black
in, right?
Black coupe, or is it a Targa?
Black on black Targa.
Targa.
And so we went back and forth. He was asking 19, and my budget was 17. And so at the end of that first negotiation, he's like, well, I guess it's not going to happen. I was like, yeah, sorry, I guess this isn't the car for me. I went home, yes.
But at that time, you were already Chris Jacobs, right? I mean, like a personality.
Yes,
so
yeah.
did he know you were
After
Chris?
the fact, he told me, because this is what's funny about this story. This guy who answered the door and sold me the car is my very good friend, Reed Morales, who is now my business manager. He runs all of my brand relationships.
But you lose all sort of bargaining power by being present in the transaction.
I guess, but he didn't tell me that he knew who I was at the time, so I thought I still had that bargaining power. But I went back, I slept on it, I called him again the next day. I go, I gotta have this car. Do you think your dad would take 17.5? Which today sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
cheap,
right.
So he came back to me, he said, look, my dad will meet you in the middle, and I ended up getting the car for $18,000. And then years later at SEMA, Reed saw me, and he said, hey, I'm the guy that sold you the Porsche. Do you still have it? Fully expecting me to say, no, I flipped it and made, $5,000 on it. And I told him, this is what I tell everybody today about that car. I said, I have it, I drive it all the time, and I will never sell that car.
Awesome.
So I don't care what it's worth.
So many of us in the room, because we're active in PCA, obviously Porsches are what we normally drive. But do you find it interesting that you are always like kind of put in a position where you're the Dodge Mopar guy? Like you can't possibly love anything else. Like you can only love one brand. Like right, folks here in the audience, you drive other cars, you love other cars, but they always say, oh, I can't believe you didn't rent a Porsche for this event. I'm like, no, the Chevy Malibu will be just fine for this for this event.
He's trying to justify that he has BMW, even though he's the executive director of the Porsche Club of America, is what he's trying to build all this up for.
It's okay. Well, we'll let him slide on this one. But yeah, I mean, obviously, because of OverHaulin being a muscle car centric show, you in the muscle car world, you got to kind of choose a team. You're either, the Blue Oval, you're either, a Ford or a GM or a Mopar.
Right.
And the Mopar design has always spoken to me. They're kind of like the.
But it wasn't Dad. It wasn't Dad that pushed you in that direction.
No, Mopar's. I think my buddy Pete, my best friend for like the past 20, 25, 30 years. He really turned me on to Mopars. He helped me find my first Mopar, which was a big, giant 68 Plymouth Sport Fury convertible, which I loved.
Ooh. 440
under the hood, Super Commando. That was a really fun car to own for a long time. So I've had a bunch of Mopars throughout my life, and there's not one really special Mopar car to me. Like I'll buy and sell them. It's not like my 911. Like my 911 just, because of my dad, and just it's a special car because it's super clean. Runs absolutely perfectly. I drove it out here from Burbank a couple days ago, and we're one. My 911 and I are one.
And it's your personal time machine, right?
Yeah.
When you drive it, it's like you just focus on driving it.
It's analog.
It's analog,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's, Mopars will come and go in my life. I am a Mopar guy in the muscle car world, but, Porsches are just as important to me as Mopars are.
Now, do you think your dad would have been impressed that this week you met the son of the guy who designed the 911?
You probably, yeah. I'm sure that he would be. I don't know what it was about 911s that appealed to my dad. I mean, I guess it's kind of, in the macro sense, it's something that appeals to everybody about a 911, but then each one of us has a special relationship with Porsches, whether it be, whatever model it is, just happens to be 911s for me. But there's something about Porsche that we have a special relationship with.
There's got to be some childhood photos that you've got to be able to dig up and share with us at some point.
I think my stepmom's got, my dad was very into photography. He used to take pictures of everything. So I'm sure if I go back through the albums, I may be able to find some of those pictures. But we're going back, 45 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So take us through, you were in the NFL world.
Yeah, I worked.
And Manny's going to chuckle because when we get,
I
can barely say NFL, let alone talk about,
Just say the
sports.
whole thing, just say National Football League.
But from there, how do you get to what we all know as OverHaulin?
Well, OverHaulin came first.
Yeah,
I started OverHaulin in 2003. I worked for NFL Network from 2012 to 2015 or 16.
Oh, I had it reversed.
Yeah. So I did OverHaulin first. So OverHaulin was my first regular job. I started out in the entertainment business in 1995, and just a bunch of commercials and TV shows and a few, movies. But then I tried out for OverHaulin in 2003, and that changed my life. It thrust me into the car world, and I've been able to get so many other jobs because of the success of OverHaulin. And I mean, it's amazing. It's been 20 years, I guess. This year is 20 years since OverHaulin started.
But before that,
people still watch it.
You told us at the Concord banquet, I think shocked the whole room who knew you. He's an attorney.
Yeah, well, that was my backup plan.
Backup plan. Oh my
I went
goodness.
to college, and then after graduating college, I didn't really want to jump right into the real world. So I was like, what sort of continuing education can I do? And law school. I was an English major, so I just, went to law school, and it's after you get through the first semester of law school, it's just like college. It's just there's a saying in law school: the first year they scare you to death, the second year they work you to death, and the third year they bore you to death. And that's really true. And then passing the bar on my first try in California that's my greatest accomplishment in life. I mean, I have no idea
that's
how it happened,
impressive.
but I did it. Thank you. And then I did nothing with it. Then I started acting immediately, and then in 2003 I got OverHaulin, and that's, like I said, that really changed the course of my life.
And where was the intersection where you decided to turn right and then that ended up OverHaulin Way?
Just going on that audition.
Really?
Yeah, my agent sent me on that audition. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea who Chip Foose was. I just, showed up for it and got lucky. I knew enough about cars. And they were really looking for someone who was an actor who would be able to play the pranks, to improvise in the moment. Because we only got the way we did OverHaulin. You guys seen OverHaulin? So you know the premise.
Yeah, that's why they're here.
You only get one shot at the prank.
Right.
It's like you say, oh, I screwed up, let's start over. The person who I'm pranking has no idea what's going on.
Right.
So they needed someone who was good at improv. And that's how I got the job. The fact that I knew a little bit about cars was kind of a bonus for them. And then as the show went on, I learned more and more and more about cars. And that led to jobs in the auction world where I just get to walk around and talk about cars, which is, dream job.
It almost seems impossible that you didn't have to be a car guy to do OverHaulin, because you come off as a car guy, and thank God you are a car guy, because I know, in PCA, when people come to apply for different jobs, it can't hide the fact that you're not a car person.
Right,
It's just, it comes out very quickly.
Yeah,
And
well,
it makes such a
I knew
difference.
just enough at the time when I auditioned for OverHaulin to get the job, and then, like I said, the more, then I was in the deep end.
Right.
And so I learned a lot very quickly, and everything I learned on OverHaulin served me now in the auction world. And I've been doing Mecum for the last couple of years. I did Barrett Jackson for 6 years before that. And like I said, I'm the person who goes around and previews cars. Once in a while, I'll jump up on the auction block and talk about the cars with the guys. But I get to just walk around and talk about whatever car I want to. And so it's like amazing, that I get to do this.
And you're working.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm getting paid to do this. I have to pinch myself all the time.
So I'm a huge Chip Foose fan. What's it like to work with him?
He's the best. He's even cooler and more down to earth than he appears on the show, and so generous with his time. If anybody's ever met him at a car show and had the opportunity to talk to him for a little bit, he'll sketch any car that you want for you, and he's just so humble for his amount of talent. I've never met anybody who's that humble for being that talented.
So you mentioned pranks earlier, and we kind of talked about our president, Aaron Ambrosino, who's sitting over there. We were going to save this for later, but you said pranks, so we might as well talk about it now. Pranks on TV, you never really know, is it staged or is it really happening? Aaron, you want to say a couple things? Or?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the show, and my wife, it's funny because I watch Motor Trend and all those channels, and she's like, they all seem the same to me, the show. But OverHaul was fun because you used to go out and prank folks. There was an episode where you were going to overhaul somebody's Corvette.
Yeah.
You were dressed up as a rocker.
Correct.
And if I remember correctly, your job was to smash a guitar through the windshield.
Yes.
And then it went sideways from there.
Very sideways. And by the way, if you've ever smashed a windshield with a guitar, it is very satisfying. It's a satisfying feeling, and I was able to do it on the first try, and it was
Future
great.
event at Parade. Yeah.
So we were pranking this guy who owns this Corvette, and he used to be in a rock band when he was younger. So the prank was me, Mitch Lanzini, who's our painter, and Chip Foose dressed up like rockers, and we were a tribute band to his band.
Oh.
So when he pulled into his driveway with his Corvette, we were there playing one of his songs, or no, it was a song that we made up, but we're like, hey, we love your band, and we want you to join our tribute band, and he was like mildly amused, and so then we played him this song, and I go around the car, and I smashed his windshield with the guitar. Now the plan was to then keep the car between him and me, because his wife told us that he will probably get very angry and try to punch me. So,
and at this point, you're more focused about, can I break the window with the guitar?
well, yeah, and then once I broke the windshield, I felt this surge of adrenaline that I had accomplished that. I got caught up in the moment, And I don't know why I did this. I really regret doing this, but I took my guitar off and I threw it down on the ground.
Oh.
It was so stupid. I loved this guitar. It was this beautiful Stratocaster, and I was like, why did I just do that? So now I'm caught up in the moment, and instead of like keeping the car between me and him, I go to high five him. I'm like, yeah, let's high five, rock and roll. And I see him, everything went in total slow motion. Like everything slowed down to about 10%. And I see him rearing back. And I'm saying to myself, you're about to get hard. And I was like, turn your head. So I see it coming. This guy's a big guy. He's probably, 6'2", like 260. And he comes at me, and I just managed to turn my head like this, so he caught me right under the jaw. My wig flew off, my sunglasses flew off, my earpiece
Cameras
comes
are still
flying
rolling.
out. Oh, yeah, full rolling. Yeah. So then I'm down on the ground, and I'm still like, with it. I know what happened and everything, and it's a little bit shocking, but it's like, I'm okay, I can deal with this. And then all of a sudden, he's above me, and he's gonna take another
Round
crack
two.
at me. Yeah. So Chip comes running over and grabs me. He's like, Glenn, no, you're on overhauling. I'm Chip,
no.
that's Chris. And he
my
went
God.
from, so this is his emotional roller coaster that he went on in 45 seconds. Mild amusement, annoyance, rage, disbelief, and then fear that he had like seriously injured me.
Oh my God.
But I popped up. I was okay. Just a little bruise on my jaw. Everything was fine. He was super apologetic. But that instantly became like everybody's favorite, most memorable prank. And I get it all the time at car shows and at the auctions. Like, that guy really punched you out.
Yeah,
Was that
that's
really
literally
real?
what he asked me.
Exactly.
He was like, can we ask you?
100% real. No worse for the wear. And it's funny too, because as soon as everyone figured out I was okay, all the network people started immediately planning how they were going to use this to promote.
I'm
the
sure they
show.
first looked at the contract. What happens when he gets punched?
Exactly. Yeah. But no, it turned out to be a very popular episode.
So that's a real concern, is how they're going to. I know I would be maybe not violent at 5'6", but certainly annoyed that if someone were to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, rightfully so. And by the way, fair trade. Taking a punch for being able to smash a windshield with a guitar, I would do it again. It's like I said, it was very, very satisfying. Yes, sir.
What year was the Strat?
Oh, no, it was a new one. It was a repro. Yeah, I would not have thrown down a vintage Strat. Yeah.
John was getting
I know my guitar
John was
pretty
getting
well,
triggered
so,
back
yeah.
there.
John was going like this.
Sorry to trigger you. No, it was a
Unfortunately, I have 63 guitars.
He does. Anything about guitars, I'm going to him.
Yeah, well, trust me. Even though it was a repro Strat, it was a great guitar, and I really regretted throwing it down. I just totally got caught up in the moment. But what we did was we gathered the pieces together, and everybody signed it, and then we gave it to Glenn.
Oh,
so it still
that's
has
cool.
some value, I guess.
That's
But
cool.
I miss that guitar.
So of course, I'm sure everyone also asks you, the record time in which you do these cars,
Yeah.
is that legit? Like, is the car done, or is it like
Yes.
done enough to do a video and then finish it the next?
It always needs to go through a safety check when we're done, and to be properly shaken down to make sure it's road ready. But the first 5 seasons of overhauling, those cars were completed in 8 days. If we took it on a Monday, it was given back to the person the following Monday.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah,
impressive.
I mean, and it's all about man hours. You get enough guys working enough hours, you can accomplish it. And we all had a singular goal of making this person's dream come true. And that all trickled down from Chip. Chip was the tip of the arrow on these. His attitude, his work ethic, his just skill. I mean, all these guys who were on the A team wanted to be at their best to impress Chip, because Chip is always at his best.
And even though you might not be working specifically on the engine or not, sanding the body, but you had to be there because you needed to see everything, right?
Yeah, I did, and I jumped in a little bit. I would leave obviously the very technical work to the experts, but I sanded Sanded
That's
a lot
probably
of
more fun
hours.
to do so, to be a part of it, than
Oh,
to just,
for
sit, than to
sure,
just
yeah.
sit on a chair and watch people
Oh,
work.
no. Yeah, no, especially in deconstruction.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm great at taking a car apart.
And breaking glasses, apparently.
breaking windshields, I'm okay at, putting the car back together, I leave to the experts, but I mean, simple stuff, I'm always
So when the camera stops,
jumping in.
you're still working on
I'm
the car.
still there. I'm still there. Yeah. I mean, obviously, those guys would stay a lot longer than I would because they have the responsibility. And also, the A team would rotate. We'd have our core group of guys, and then we'd have probably 10 or 15 other guys who would be there just for that episode.
Because they were the expert on that particular model.
Yes. So those guys are willing to put in, 18-hour days for a week straight. The normal A team guys would have, a little bit more time off to rest and, do their thing.
Do you recall how many Porsches were on?
Just one.
Just one, right?
Yeah, just the 356 that they were showing a little bit of the episode on the
How many
video.
here have seen that episode? Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was pretty cool as a fan of OverHaulin when I saw that not only was it a 356, but you got Rod Emery.
Yeah, we got Rod Emery to help us out, and he was really just the guiding force there. And there's a little clip there of Chip carrying the back window of a '59 Volkswagen, and that's what he put into the back section of the 356. And we get a lot of a strife from the Volkswagen community because they think that we cut up a '59 Volkswagen, but we did not.
Yeah.
We did not cut up a '59 Volkswagen. That came off a car that was just crap. It was
Right.
a basket case. So we didn't sacrifice a '59.
So who was more
because-
triggered, the
Yeah,
Volkswagen
it was,
community
we
or the
triggered
356
the
community?
Samba community.
Yeah,
The
the
Samba,
Samba community.
message boards were going
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
Can't believe we did this, but we didn't. And we also, a lot of people had a problem with the fact that we, modified a 356. Well, this car, if you watch the episode, it was ready for the graveyard.
Yeah.
I mean, we saved this car. We didn't modify it, we saved it. And having Rod on the team with us was just amazing because he is so knowledgeable about 356s. And since this episode, he's become a good friend of mine. His shop is up very close to where I live, and I go there, a few times a year just to check out what he's working on. He's a genius. He's the Chip Foose of the Porsche community.
And he's synonymous with the outlaw
Yeah.
356
So
world.
he modifies 356s for a living.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, what he's doing is synonymous also to what either Gunther Works or Singer is doing to 911s. I
Right.
mean, it's at that level. He's fantastic, and he's also such a humble guy.
So there's so many potential cars or projects out there to consider. How did you all choose which one, and how did the stories come to you?
So we would get about, at the height of OverHaulin's success in 2000, I think it was about 7, we would get about 1,000 submissions a week.
Wow.
Whoa.
People who would want to. Yeah, now most of these we weren't able
That's
to
why
do.
you didn't read mine. Oh,
I
that's
think
why.
so. Well, we specifically flagged yours, and we were like, no way, this guy. But no, most of them were just, inappropriate for the show. Someone would send us their, 85 Caprice or something. It's just not something that we would do on the show. Others were just too far gone.
Yeah.
Others we couldn't get parts for. And the main thing was the story. It had to be a good story to go along with the car, because that's really what OverHaulin is about. Yes, it's a car show, but it's really a people show.
Right.
It's about a person's relationship and connection to the car that we're overhauling. So that was really the crux. And we chose this 356 in particular because Irma, I think her name was Irma, she had a very close connection with this car. I think it had been in her family for a long time, and she was not going to sell it for any reason, and it was basically just rotting away in her driveway. And so her husband called us up and told us the story and submitted the car, and we chose it because we wanted to get outside the box a little bit too and do something imported versus our typical American muscle cars.
So how does it work? Can you share with us? Because when you take something that's rotting on the driveway that might be worth $1,000, and then you build it into this, hot rod that's now probably a 6-figure car, who foots the bill, and what does it mean to the owner that's now getting a car back that's worth all
I
that?
think that the owners were only on the hook for a small gift tax. It wasn't a prohibitive cost for them, regardless of the fact that they were getting a huge increase in value. I think because it's considered a gift, they just pay a slight increase in a gift tax. And then the budget Most of the budget came from the network, and then we would get a lot of the parts donated for the quid pro quo of being mentioned on the show, and just that companies would want to be associated with OverHaulin, so they would give us a lot of the products.
And someone goes out and looks at this car prior to
Yes.
you
Yeah.
to see how bad it is. And
Yeah, but I mean, we always had a saying on OverHaulin, looks can be deceiving. It's a cliche, but it's like you can look at a car, and I'm sure if anybody's ever taken a car through media blasting.
Ran when parked.
Yeah, exactly. You get it back from media blasting, and then you know.
Yeah.
You never know until you get the paint off a car, what you're dealing with. I mean, we've seen things like chicken wire being used on fenders, like they rebuilt the fender with chicken wire and then just mudded it. I mean, we've seen 4 inches of mud, just crazy things.
Were there any ones that when you finally did take it all down to bare metal where you said, we can't finish this project?
Yeah. There
Oh,
was
there
a couple
were?
of times that we had to go. Well, not that we couldn't finish it. We couldn't finish this particular car as is. I mean,
okay.
we've gone and gotten other front clips. We've gotten entire sections of cars that we've replaced the actual car with. But our attitude was, as long as there's still a little piece of the original car.
Yeah, I do
in there
remember some
somewhere.
episodes where you had to take like major sections of a donor car.
Yes, there was a Mustang. The episode is called Rustang, quite appropriately.
That's the
It
one I was thinking of.
Yeah, so far gone, we actually
Yeah.
had to cut the entire front
Exactly,
section
that's
off another
that's the
car
episode I was thinking of.
and weld them together. There was a Bel Air too that literally when we went to pick it up, it turns out that it had been 2 Bel Airs that were kind of like shoved together.
Ooh.
And not welded together, just like shoved. We pulled it apart. And so we were like, okay, this one, we just can't do it. So we went and got a donor Bel Air, and I think we might have used some metal from the original car on the new car.
Wow.
Yeah. No, but it was always the real deal. We tried not to fake anything on OverHaulin. Now later on, when the show came back for its second version and was more popular, and therefore Chip was more popular and didn't have 8 days at a time, nor could he because it was just too much on his schedule. We took as much as 3 weeks sometimes to build a car. The Lotus that we built for Leno's guy, that took us like 3 months because it was so intensive. So if you want to see a really cool build and really cool modification of a car, watch the Lotus Europa episode of OverHaulin. What Chip did on that car is just mind-boggling.
So in the first run, how many days apart between projects did you have?
We were putting out a car in the 3rd season of OverHaulin. We did 29 episodes, and so we were making a new car every 11 days.
wow.
Yeah, so we'd have 8 days on, either 1 or 2 days off, and then we'd start another episode.
John has a 356 restoration shop. You're about that speed, right, John? 11 days.
Yeah,
and
11
do
days.
356 every
Crank out a
I know
356.
that we screwed up a lot of guys who have their own shops because they come and they're like, "What? We can't get this in a week? They're doing it on OverHaulin."
Oh,
Right?
I didn't think about that. You probably did make some folks' lives a little bit harder.
We did.
That's so funny. Were there any particular projects that were your favorite?
I mean, Chip's truck is obviously probably everybody's favorite episode just because of how emotionally attached that he was to the truck and the reaction that we got from him when we gave it back to him. But kind of setting that episode to the side, I'm partial to the Mopars, so the 69 Roadrunner convertible that we did was a very special build, threw a Hemi in there. Chip and I switched roles one episode, and I was the lead designer of the show, and then he was the host of the show. Turns out we're both really bad at each other's jobs. But that was a 67 Coronet that I had just free reign on, and that's pretty amazing to just, receive a car and be like, okay, whatever you want to do to it, we're going to do to it. So that was very cool. We put a crate Hemi in there, really cool paint scheme. We did this really cool graphic on the rear quarters for the guy that was personalized to him. So that was an amazing experience. But yeah, I mean, there's so many of them. We did 162 episodes, I think. So there's probably episodes I've forgotten. But I can tell you this, at the end of every episode, when we're about to give the car back to the people and it's on the floor and everything's lit up and we're all standing around it looking at it and we're all going, yeah, this is my favorite one.
Yeah.
This is the coolest one.
Well,
I mean, that happens so
Along
many
those
times.
lines, though, and we have a raffle for our club. We give away Porsches twice a year, and at least one of those raffle winners Vu's able to capture on video. and I've gone along with them. And the comment we mostly get from people is, no one acts surprised. And I try to explain, but because they're stunned.
Yes.
Even though it's like buying a lottery ticket. You don't really expect to win.
Right.
So being told and surprised at your workplace or home that you just won a Porsche, they freeze.
Right.
Is that ever the worry of you?
Well, it happened a lot, you know, I mean, it's true, but what would always bubble up is that emotion. And that's really what we're looking for, and that's what we're hoping for. And regardless of the emphaticness of the reaction to seeing their car there overhauled, that emotion always came up. So sometimes it was, right out of the box, oh my God, this is amazing, but a lot of times it was a very slow build because the people are processing it, like you said.
Yeah.
They're stunned, they're shocked, they can't believe that it had happened to them. And also, earlier in the day, I played some wacky final prank on them.
Oh, really?
And they found out that they've been overhauled. So after this week of stress, thinking they're never gonna get their car back, then they go through this big stressful situation of the prank, and then they find out that they're getting their car back, so they maybe are still processing that and a little bit exhausted from that too.
Have you ever had anyone who wasn't happy with what you did?
We had one person who later we found out had not been happy with it, but we really weren't concerned with it because it was a 2005 Mustang, and we just put like a body kit and a paint job on it. So we weren't, Chip wasn't super emotionally invested in the design. The true Foose builds were always satisfactory to the people who got the car back.
Because I remember Pit My Ride, probably the first, I guess, automotive reality show. The looks on some of the faces spoke volumes of how they weren't too happy having a fish tank in the back of the trunk of the car.
Especially one that you can't open to feed the fish.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody needs a chandelier in the back seat of their car.
Well,
And they certainly don't need video monitors in the parking lights.
Or in the fenders,
But to OverHaulin,
we took offense to the comparisons.
But the OverHaulin I liked from the car enthusiast, it wasn't insulting my intelligence.
Right.
Maybe like Pit My Ride was, which maybe was made for general audience, non-automotive people, but the OverHauling I enjoyed
that's
watching
a good point, because Pimp My Ride is obviously for the MTV audience.
Sure.
We were doing it for the
And it seemed like the
motor
beginning
enthusiast
of
audience.
what, I guess OverHauling was more, yes, you can still have a big audience, but we can teach them something and we're not dumbing it down.
And ironically, OverHaulin went into production before Pimp My Ride.
Oh, really?
Pimp My Ride just premiered before OverHaulin. So a lot of people think Pimp My Ride came first, but actually we began production first because we were very aware of what they were doing, especially when the episodes started coming out. But that was never really a concern. We knew we were much different.
A different
show.
segment, different show.
Different demographic, definitely.
So this week we also had your partner in crime, AJ, here with us. When did AJ enter into the picture?
AJ came on board, I want to say season 4. We had Courtney Hansen was my first co-host. She was seasons 1 and 2, and then she went on to do some other stuff. So we had season 3 was just me and Chip, and then AJ came on in season 4. I think she was there for 4, 5, and 6, maybe. Yeah.
Wow. So you take a look back at all that you've done there. Do you think there will be something that might come back in the future to
you never know.
bring the band back together? Not break windshields, but
well, maybe break a windshield. We're still around, and they canceled us 3 times now, I guess, and brought us back twice. So it's time for bringing us back a 3rd time. I know the Chip would be down for it. I certainly would be down for it. So
there's still shows of that genre.
Yeah.
Plenty of them that it's not like people got tired of that type of show.
No, I mean it's a proven method that Motor Trend just keeps making build shows.
But now I see you at the Mecum Auctions, which I am a junkie for auctions on TV. I live vicariously through the people that are there and that are the bidders and the sellers. Yeah. And it looks very fast-paced. How far ahead, when you're there, I guess you're picking cars because they always go to you on the camera and you're next to a car.
Yeah.
I guess, how many, do you pick all the cars ahead of time? Is there something where people come up to you and say, hey, you should look at my car?
That happens sometimes, and if it's something I'm interested in, I'll do that. I'm pretty much, so the auctions usually go, it's either a 2, 3, or 4-day auction, and I'll get there a day before, and I'll walk around. All the cars are already, laid out, and so I'll get a chance to see everything that's there. So I'll make mental notes as to what I want to talk about. But it's very much in the moment. Like they'll say, okay, Chris, we're gonna come to you in 5 minutes, pick something out. And so I'll look around and see what's in our air window.
5 minutes.
Yeah, Google is my friend.
Yeah.
So I'll go. I like to give a little piece of information about the car that maybe someone doesn't know something about. You know, like who designed it, what year it was designed, things like that. So I'll Google the car and then do the preview. So, but it's very much in the moment, because it also has to be a car that's going to be on the air. So I can't just pick anything.
Ah, right.
Because it has to be not only the overall air window, but it also has to be in between the commercials too. So yeah, I pick something out that I like, and if the truck approves it, they send me a camera and I go.
So if they don't approve it, now you have 2 minutes to find something else?
Yeah, exactly. So then I'll go to something, you know, that I already know very well, and I'll just, you know, kind of wing it, do it on the fly. Like I know a lot about Corvettes, so I'll do, you know, something that's pretty much every Corvette, especially the mid-year Corvettes, they're different every year. You know, they change the gas caps every year, they change the hood design is changed every year. So I'll point out little things that make it a 66 versus a 65, something like that.
I guess you're wearing an earpiece and they're talking to you.
They are,
Yeah,
yep.
So you know when it's time to wrap it up. And
Exactly, yeah.
And because when Robert speaks to us when we do our little show from our office, my brain stops working when he's talking to me in my ear. And I can't hide my face that I'm no longer listening. It's
May
like,
starts looking at the ceiling. What?
like when my wife says, "What did I just say?" And I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, a lot of times, you know, I'll be listening to the truck, and it's in my ears. I always have, you know, the program up in my ears, and then people will try to talk to me, and you know, if you ever try to talk to me and I like ignore you or something, it's because I'm trying to listen to what the program is. So I hope I'm not being rude to people, but yeah, it's. And then it takes a couple days after each auction to stop hearing that. Because that's always.
That's playing in your ear the whole time.
Oh.
Wow.
You're getting
Now I have even
programmed.
more respect.
Yeah, that's the auctioneers. That's a special skill. I mean, it's amazing what those guys.
We've
do.
been to Mecum Auctions.
It's tough to get it out of your head.
And we've been to like RM Sotheby's. RM Sotheby's is much slower.
Yeah.
And they pause.
Yes.
And they use their English auctioneers. You
Yes.
know, it
Much
seems
more,
civilized.
Much more civilized.
Yes. So Mecum's more like Vegas.
Yes.
It is like bam, bam. I like that because after I watch Mecum and I go to R&M, I'm like, where's the fast forward button? This is taking way too long for a car to go through. But it's. But like I said, I watch you guys on there, and I'm like, wow, that's got to be super stressful because it's almost like that's when you did the NFL or
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't call it. I mean, it's not. I don't feel stress when I'm doing the show. I love it. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, I walk around. It's almost like sensory overload. You know, we all get excited when we see a car on the road in daily life, right? We're just out there and we're like, oh my God, look at that. You know, it's because it's unusual to see this classic car in a world of just run-of-the-mill cars. At Mecum, every car is like that. So it can be very kind of overwhelming. There's just one after another, where if you saw any one of these cars out in the street by itself, it would be mind-blowing. But to see them all together there, it's almost desensitizing.
Now, is there a delay? Because when I work with Manny, I have to have a delay. Or I wish I had more of a delay. Now, you're live. I mean, it's streaming.
No,
and
live is live. Yeah.
Live is live.
As soon as it comes out of my mouth, you're hearing
That's
it.
a lot of pressure, and you're of course you're a pro, so
I don't
you're
know, you know,
comfortable
I mean,
with that.
Live TV is kind of my specialty. I've done a lot of live TV between the auctions and the stuff that I do on Discovery. You know, I've hosted the space launches. I do the Chopper live. I went to Egypt and we unveiled a mummy on live TV.
What?
I've done a lot of live TV. Yeah, there was a special episode of Expedition Unknown.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I went to Minya, Egypt, and we unveiled a mummy on live TV. And thank God there was a mummy in this sarcophagus.
I was thinking Al Capone's vault.
That would have been a Geraldo Rivera movie. Yeah, exactly.
I remember that. That's so funny. That's a great reference.
Al Capone, yeah. So I don't really have that kind of fear of doing live TV. I'm very comfortable with a microphone and a camera, and you know, I guess I'm lucky I found my skill.
So were you prepared to land here at Palm Springs or at La Quinta with 2,000 Porsche enthusiasts coming toward you? With
Yeah, I was.
what did you think of Parade?
I was. I mean, it's been a great experience. The banquet was a blast the other night. I'm really looking forward to the parade tomorrow. You know, Porsches are such unique cars, and I think that Porsche more than any other brand, the love is the strongest for a Porsche because there are so few models in the Porsche lineup. You know, I mean, there's so many Ferraris. You know, I mean, I can't keep
them straight.
I have no idea what one is from the other, except for the classic ones. You know? But Porsches, there's something about them that that's why we're here, right? Because we love that something about them that we can't quite describe, but we know what the feeling is.
It's in our DNA. We're programmed, and we want to wake up early in the morning to put our cars, you know, to get ready for a drive or a Concours. Like I say this all the time. My mom drives a Mercedes E-Class. It's a nice car, but she doesn't wake up on Saturday mornings and wonder where the other E-Class owners are. She just doesn't.
Well, and it's, you know.
We do, because we're just weird, right?
This week has been such a dream too, and I'll tell you what. Arriving here today, what time? So I got here at about 11:30, and I pull into the resort, and there's a 959 parked there, which is my favorite Porsche of all time. And then I'm walking in my room and I'm passing all the parking, and there's a 73 RS sitting in there. And that's my second favorite Porsche. So within 5 minutes of arriving, I got to see both of my favorite Porsches live and in person. And I was just so happy, you know, to see these cars in person and know these cars are being driven.
Exactly.
And that's what it's all about.
So we have a few minutes before we wrap this up. Do you guys have some questions? And if you do, raise your hand and I'll repeat it since we don't have a mic.
Guitar Man.
Guitar Man.
Who did the turbo in last night's movie?
Who did the turbo in last night's movie?
The Transformer. That was done by Porsche Classic.
Really?
Yep.
I did not see it. I wasn't here for that.
What's that? There you go.
We will tell Porsche Classic that John Paderak approved of the Transformer, that it was done
Mirage.
correctly.
If you don't know, in the newest Transformer movie, there is a Porsche named Mirage, and it has a very significant role in the movie. And it's I think it's inspired by like a 3.6, right? A 964 3.6. But certainly with all the crashing and bashing that they do, I have to believe it's, you know, a G-body car, but certainly not a 3.6 964. Question?
What are the economics on a show, like an episode? How much does it cost to produce, and what kind of return are you usually looking at?
The question is the economics of a show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know that we're looking for any return other than viewership, you know, which translates to ad dollars. The budget for OverHaulin was probably a lot less than you might expect it to be, especially in the beginning. We were running very lean and mean, and what we were doing was a lot of trade outs. So we'd get free product for people wearing t-shirts or hanging banners on the show. Once the network figured that out, that quickly changed to, you know, the network wanting to get ad money from these companies. So therefore, the budget from the network had to go up. And I would say probably the average cost to average over the years, I mean, it was a long span, but probably about $300,000 per episode to produce, which is very lean and mean, by the way. Very lean. That's like super, super low margins. But again, the return is really just getting eyeballs on the screen.
I think we had a question over here.
Anyone? No one?
Anyone?
Bueller?
Bueller? Right there.
What is your favorite program that you watch on Motor Trend?
On Motor Trend?
What is your favorite program on Motor Trend?
You know, Dave Kindig's a good buddy of mine.
Kindig.
I love bitchin' rides. Yeah. I think they do amazing work. I've been out to Dave's shop in Salt Lake, and Dave and I are close buddies. And I've watched his career, just, you know, stratospheric rise. I remember we used to do these things called Velocity Live. Before Motor Trend, it was Velocity. And I used to host these things called Velocity Live, and I would interview the various celebrities on Motor Trend. And I remember Dave Kindig was sitting down in the front row before his show had debuted, and I had seen an episode or two of his show before it started airing, and I said to Dave, I go, you're going to be up here next year, man. And sure enough, now he's like surpassed everybody. You know, he's one of the biggest stars on the network. So that's definitely one of the shows that I like to watch.
Have there been other automotive heroes that you've met that you never thought you'd be able to meet? And
Yeah, man, you know, he's a very polarizing figure, but I like Mark Warman a lot, you know, being a Mopar guy. And they actually did the 392 Hemi swap on my GTX. So I got a chance to go up there, and I was part of his show, Graveyard Cars. If you guys are Mopar people. He's great because he's very true to factory. He doesn't do modifications, he does restorations. And I really like that too. I'm more of a restoration guy than a modification guy. I like the original stuff.
Purist.
Especially in Porsches.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see a lot of modified Porsches unless you get into the Gunthers and the Singers and, you know, Rod Emery and stuff like that. It's more, the Porsche community is more about being stock. Like my 911 is completely stock, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't even know how to modify it to make it any better anyway.
But you might know a few people that would know how to modify it.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely true. But no, I like more of the stock stuff. Yeah, what was the question again? I can't remember what the question was.
How long did Chip have to do the rendering and design the car? I mean, and you guys saw it ahead of time. I mean, you know, you see him on TV sketching it out. I know he's super talented, but what kind of time did he have to sketch out and design the car?
Yeah, well, that would happen in real time. You know, he didn't do his design. Chip would know what the car was and maybe knew what shape it was in, but until he saw the car in person, and particularly until we got it back from Media Blast, which was the first thing to happen after Decon, he would do his design right there. I mean, it was literally, as you're seeing it happen on the show, was when he was doing it. So
would he be told the story of the car so it can influence the design?
Yes, well, we would have a meeting with the insider, the person who nominated the person to be on the show, and Chip would get a lot of information from that person, you know, and kind of design the car around that person's likes. But yeah, I mean, he didn't have any really pre-production time. It would happen in real time. And then there was also a time where he would do his final rendering, which was the real, you know, detailed painting, essentially, of the car. And he would do that later in the build. Probably when the car went to paint, he would start doing his final rendering. That, I think, I'm not sure if that's the final rendering, if that's just a sketch. Because he would sketch the car several times, and then he'd do his final rendering of the car.
I find automotive designers fascinating. I'm not an artist by any stretch. You know, I'm watching somebody do something I cannot do. But Grant Larson, who you met, the Boxster designer, among other things, he was here this week, and we got into the topic of 991 Speedsters and whether we liked them or not, and what we would have changed. And he flipped over a piece of paper, took a pencil out of his pocket, and started sketching what we were saying we would have changed, and then adding his flair. And within 3 minutes, he had designed a car that, you know, we said, I wonder how we can pay Porsche to make this car instead. And this one here.
Did you think that the tonneau was a little too high?
Well, he said the reason for that.
That's one of the main complaints about the 991 Speedster.
Yes,
exactly. It was a little too high, a little bulky.
Yep, he said that was because of the top. So I said, well, suppose you had a removable hardtop. You could take it off, especially in Southern California, and then that's what he's redesigned. He said, then it would look like this, and everyone was like, wow. But the fact he could sit there and translate our thoughts that quickly on an in and out placemat, it was pretty impressive.
Well, it's pretty funny. He's like, we're seeing our thoughts being put on paper, but in his head, he's like, well, I need a little bit more time with this. I'm like, it looks exactly what we're thinking about. It's like, how did you do that?
And I made the mistake of saying, well, if it was me, I would change that, Grant. And I got the look.
No. No. We did make a video of it, but there's evidence of it. So we'll have to share that later.
It was very organic. It wasn't planned. It was just, you know, car people. That's the thing I love about Parade is that even the Porsche people are true enthusiasts. So, you know, if you came Wednesday when they were doing the Porsche seminars, Grant was in the audience listening to all the other presentations because, you know, obviously even for a guy who's worked for Porsche that long, he never gets tired of it.
Yeah.
And he wanted to learn more about like Alban Springer. He wanted to learn more about current motorsports. So he was down there with everyone else, just
That's cool.
taking it all in.
That's really cool.
I am hoping that I've had a little bit of how you feel when you delivered a car, because we recently handed over the keys to the new caretaker of the PCA's Classic Club Coupe to Jerry Seinfeld, and he bought the car, but he's never seen it in person. He read a little bit about it, and we covered it up, but you really don't know like how they're going to react, and are they truly going to be impressed by the car. Thankfully, it all worked out well for us. But I feel like that's maybe how you feel every time you presented the car.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you never know until you see it happen. I mean, you know, we hedged our bets a little bit, obviously, because we had the advice of the insider to tell us what the person wanted. But yeah, it's always so satisfying. And I mean, to watch Chip be emotionally affected by how they're reacting to the work that he has done. And he always says that that's really what it was all about for him, was seeing that person see the car for the first time. And he would always, I mean, he's a big softie, so he would cry inevitably every time, you know, which always kind of cracked me up because I'm a jerk. But yeah, it was always kind of funny to watch Chip cry, and which he always did, because he's such an emotional guy, which makes, you know, Chip who he is. Yeah.
So we have 2 more evenings at Porsche Parade that
Yeah.
you're going to be with us, and you
Yep.
can mingle amongst the members, and
Yep.
you'll be in the Parade of Porsches with us. We've
Can't
got
wait. Yeah, I'm
a
psyched
lot more
about
fun to have. I want to thank you for being here, and I hope
course.
everyone enjoyed our time with Chris Jacobs.
that. Yeah.